So Ford Australia have announced that the F-150 Ute, or as they call it, a pickup, is coming to Australia in about mid-2023 in fully warranted right-hand drive format. So I thought I'd put this video together and take a look at what that might mean for Australian buyers. Now I should say that all specifications are pretty much speculation. I've been told I don't make enough jokes, so that's a joke. Hope you enjoyed it. But I have been to the US website and I've extrapolated a few figures from there. And also going to take a look at what the F-150 would compare up against the PX3 Ranger, which we know has just been replaced by the next gen Ranger, in which we have some but not all specs. Alright, so there's a lot of F-150s when you go to Ford.com, the American website. There's 8 variants that you can even select different diffs. It's quite mind-numbing the amount of variants you get there. But and there's a couple of special ones. Here's the F-150 Tremor, and this is the off-road version, taller tyres, ground clearance, etc. So that's your sort of, I guess, more specialised off-road version of the F-150, and of course of the famous F-150 Raptor, and we now get a Ranger Raptor. It's not the same vehicle, the same concept though. And of course there's the F-150 Lightning electric vehicle, which is being developed. I do have another video on why electric vehicles, utes and four-wheel drives are not going to replace diesel four-wheel drives yet. I just don't think that they're ready. So have a watch of that if you're interested in an EV versus diesel comparison. Alright, so I went on to Ford's website, and I know from the press release that we're going to be getting the XLT and the Lariat versions, but a big question was and we're going to be getting in Super Cruise. That's their term for a dual cab. But which box? Now, there's a lot of translating that goes on from American to Australian and back again. So what we call a tub, they call a box. So you can either have 5.5 feet, and yeah, they do everything in feet, weird, huh? Or 6.5 feet. And I thought, okay, which is it? So if we take a look at this official press release photograph from Ford.com.au, you notice it's quite long at the back there, between the back of the door and the wheel, whereas this one is not. So that's the 5.5 foot variant. So then I looked up the 6.5 foot, and that length there corresponds to that length there. So we are getting the 6.5 box, as they call it, or tub as we call it. Then translating those inches, that means it's actually 2 meters. Okay, so what do we officially know about the F-150? Well, we're getting the XLT and Lariat trims, which is kind of mid-spec and up-spec. Ford will say it will tow 4.5 tons. We'll take a look at that claim in a moment. It will be a four-wheel drive dual cab only. They do have single and extra cab, although of course they have different names for them. We're only getting the petrol 3.5 V6, maximum power 298 kilowatts, 678 Newton meters. There is a 5 litre V8, which we're not getting. There is a smaller petrol engine, we're not getting that either. And the diesel has been discontinued, so they've got a hybrid and they've got the forthcoming electric. So diesels, there is no more diesel F-150, so we couldn't get that even if we wanted to. It will come with a 5-year warranty, right-hand drive conversion, fully factory backed, so to all the Ford dealers, and it will be here around mid-2023. Alright, so this is a diagram to scale of a PX3 Ranger and the F-150, and the first thing you can see is the tub length. Now on the Ranger it's about 1.55 meters long, it's 2 meters long on the F-150 with this 6.5 bed, which is the one I think we're getting. So that's a lot of tub space, which is really good. Now it's also significantly longer because they're not really compromising the rear seats as far as I can see there. 759 millimeters longer. Now I already sometimes have difficulty fitting my Ranger in a parking space with a bull bar and a service body out the back, but this is just going to be even longer again, so it's over 6 meters long. Now it's not necessarily a bad thing, it's just something to be aware of. The wheelbase is 773 meters longer, which is, and the Ranger's got a fairly long wheelbase already. In the next gen Ranger they increased it by 50 mil by moving the front axle forwards a touch, but this is even longer again. Now the overhang here, this is important for towing. The distance between the center of the rear axle, the tow bar, it's only 100 meters longer on the F-150 than it is on the Ranger, and what that means is that the ratio of the wheelbase to the overhang is better on the F-150 than it is on the Ranger, and that means the F-150 is going to be a slightly more stable tow vehicle, because you want to get that wheelbase as long as you can for towing and that overhang as short as you can. So points to the F-150 there. Now tyres, on the Rangers we've got 265, 65, 17, 30.6 inches. On the F-150 they're slightly taller, 31.6 inches, and that's the size I run on my Ranger anyway. It's not like it's got massive tyres. The Raptor and the off-road versions would have greater diameter tyres. Alright, now width wise, the PX3 is 1860mm wide, and I think that the next gen Ranger will be about the same. The tracks change, but I don't think it's going to be massively different on the width. The F-150 is over 2 meters wide, 20-30mm. It's an extra 169mm. For comparison, a Y62 Patrol is 995mm, and a Fuso Canter is the same width, so it's not a narrow vehicle either. It's actually fairly long and fairly wide, which again is a good thing for towing heavy vehicles. Alright, now from an off-road perspective, approach angle on a standard PX Ranger is 28 degrees, much less on the F-150 21, departure angle 27, and again much less there, but the real killer with that massive wheelbase as you'd expect is the ramp angle, only 16.6 degrees versus 24, so this is really not shaping up to be an off-road vehicle. It's kind of dirt roads, I think, and probably would go alright on sand, but yeah, that's going to scrape a lot. Okay, clearance is 232mm and an extra 6mm there, so again slightly taller tyres, but I'd imagine the diff would be a fair bit bigger on this vehicle as well, so I wouldn't be looking at this as a serious off-road vehicle. Now let's take a look at what the weights are. So I went trawling through Ford's website and I found, so I've got the Super Crew here, the 6.5, and it says the base curb weight for the 3.5 litre V6 is 4,995 pounds, which is 2,265 kilograms, which is about the same weight as a PX Ranger, yet it's a much bigger vehicle. So why so light? Now there's a couple of caveats here. Ford Australia may not use the same definition of curb or tear weight as Ford USA. The spec levels will change, who knows. So this figure probably won't translate exactly to the Australian specs, but again, I'd expected this vehicle to be heavier than what it is, and a question mark as to why it's so light, but that's what the spec says, that's what the spec says. Alright, now the GVM, they don't use the term GVM, but the equivalent term is for us comes out to 3,200 kilograms, so it's either 7,750 pounds, so that's near enough 3,200 kilograms, which again is pretty much what the Ranger is. In fact, that's a lower GVM than some of the next gen Ranger variants. Now the payload, again, that comes out to around about 952 kilograms, which is a lot, but you got to look also at whether the GVM will remain the same into the Australian versions. It may change a bit, and also that tear weight as well. Obviously, the higher the tear weight goes up, the less the payload comes down, but the payload is looking pretty good at 952 kilograms. For a vehicle of this size, I would have liked to have seen it at 1,100, but 952, I think that's kind of workable. Alright, then how much can it tow? So here's the 6.5 box getting into 4.4, there's the 3.5 V6, 13,900, that's 6,300 kilograms. I wouldn't want to tow 6 and a bit tons with a vehicle that light, but that's just me. Maybe it's a fifth wheeler or something like that. Who knows? But for Australia, it's going to be rated to 4.5 tons, and that's pretty much the only specification we do know. Now, also over here, interestingly, the GCM, gross combined mass, 19,400 pounds, 8,800 kilograms, and that's important, as we're going to see in a moment. Again, I don't know if that's going to translate over to Australia. Hopefully it does. The vehicle can take up to 6 in the USA. Whether that translates to the Australian market or not, we don't know, but 3 at the front, 3 at the back, so that's one option there. So let's take those specs that we've got so far and put them up against the PX3, the next gen Ranger, and the F-150. So with the PX3, one of the big problems it had towing, and Ford, I think their marketing kind of got ahead of their engineering a little bit, was that it had a 3.5 ton tow rating, but it had a very low gross combined mass. So 6 tonnes only. So we take 6 tonnes, we subtract the 3.5 tonnes from of towing, and then we subtract the 2200, we'll call that tare weight. That means that we've only got a 300 kilogram payload left in the car before we exceed GCM. Really not very much at all. Now the next gen Ranger fixes that to a great degree because it's got the same specs, but the GCM is up 400 kilograms. Now I have compared the next gen Ranger to the PX3 in another video, so you can watch that for more details. Now, if we take the figures I found on Ford.com and translate them over, we've got an 8800 GCM minus 3500 trailer. I'm going to call it 2300 for the car. That's a 3000 kilogram difference. And that's not payload, because obviously you can't put 3 tons of payload in this, but it means that you're not limited by GCM. The GCM is so high, so I wouldn't be at all surprised if Ford pulled that down or said you can only tow to the maximum 8,000 if it's a fifth wheeler or something like that as well. Again, this is a speculatory video. I'm just trying to give you an idea as to what the options might be in the future for this car. Now for a 4.5 tonne trailer, we'll take that 8800 GCM, take 4.5 tonnes off the trailer, 23 the car. Again, we're 2000 kilograms under GCM, so be surprised I don't reduce it. But here's the thing, right? Your tow car should be heavier than the trailer, so I really wouldn't want to tow with that. And at this point, someone will always come in and say, oh, but what about prime movers and articulated trucks? They're lighter than the trailer. Yes, they are, but the physics and dynamics involved in an articulated truck with a prime mover tractor is completely different to this sort of trailer arrangement, and I'm just not going to explain that here. All right, now this is what I've towed with F-250s and various other vehicles as well, and I think they're fantastic. Here's an F-250, it weighs about 3.5 tonnes, and it's dwarfing a Land Cruiser 200 series, which is of course the gold standard for Australian towing. This is the sort of vehicle you want to be towing 4.5 tonnes with, because it is really heavy and it's long wheelbase, keeps you grunt. It's just fantastic for towing. It's really, the F-150 really isn't it. This one, Ram 2500, 3500, I towed 4 tonnes with that. Worked really, really well. Big fan of those big duties. And again, that's bigger and heavier than the F-150. And I think that's what you need to control a heavy trailer. What you don't want to do is buy one of these for 4.5 tonnes. This is the GM Silverado. They claim it can tow 4.5 tonnes. I've done another video analysing that. It can't. You've only got 120 kilograms of payload left when you're towing 4.5 tonnes. So really, it's not a 4.5 tonne tow vehicle. It's 3.5. I think Ford have got a much better claim to towing 4.5 tonnes from what I can see so far than GM do with the Silverado. All right, now let's talk about fuel. So the fuel tank size is 26 gallons, which is 98 litres. And if I look up on the American fuel consumption side, it says it's 20 mpg, which means 11.7 litres per 100 kilometres. So that gives us a theoretical range of 837 kilometres. I'm going to take 40% off that, so 500 kilometres maybe when you're towing. So yeah, the fact it's petrol, not ideal for those long distance towing, but I'm sure you could put a long range tank in it and that would improve it. Safety, I don't know if it's going to get 5-star rated, but look, I mean, it's a top safety pick from the IIHS, so I guess it's going to do all right on the safety front. All right, summary and advice at this stage. We know we're getting the XLT and the Lariat, 4.5 tonne towing, though I don't necessarily recommend you go up that far. 4-wheel drive dual cab only, petrol engine, 5-year warranty, no diesel, and sometime in mid-2023. So I don't think that this vehicle is going to be a great off-roader. I think you're going to be better off looking at one of the imports like the Ranger Raptor F-150 for that, or one of our own local utes. It will tow 4.5 tonnes by the looks of the specs, but I think you're much better off keeping it as a really good 3.5 tonne tow vehicle. And the reason is I'd much prefer a heavier vehicle for towing, and you can look at my vehicle on towing weight dynamics to see why that is. It is going to be better on spec at least than the GM Silverado, much more able to tow a realistic figure, and it's going to be big. It's wide, it's going to be long, it's going to just take up a lot of space. But you know, if you want to tow something big and heavy, that's what you're going to have to use. Now let's just wait for the true specifications. This is just a bit of early speculation to give people an idea of their purchases maybe a year or two time, and I think it's going to be a really good choice for road and dirt road sort of towing, where you might have bought a normal Ranger. Now you can just take that step up to the F-150 and tow your bigger caravan in more comfort and safety than you would have done with the smaller Ranger. So I hope you found this video useful. Thanks for watching. Any questions, please drop them in the comments.